Greetings guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Monette and this is my channel, Evolve with Monette. For those of you that are new here, I'm a professional intuitive empath and today we're going to jump right into the video. The Great Oprah Exodus. Why the tides are changing regarding a social icon. The Great Oprah Exodus. If you grew up like me, you grew up with Oprah on your TV. She was ubiquitous. She was everywhere, from her favorite things to her talk therapy to introducing Dr. Phil and Rachel Ray, to a certain degree, hard launching them, Dr. Oz, no matter what level of tyranny that has rained down upon us. So Oprah was responsible for a lot. Oprah is a juggernaut. And for a brown girl like me who talked too much and could never sit quietly, Oprah was my idol. She was my idol for so many reasons. So let me front load this with my bias before you think I'm just a hater. Because I tell you, if I wanted to be anyone, it was a mix between her mentor, Maya Angelou, who I was so inspired by, and Oprah herself. I related to her story. I related to her struggle. I related to her struggles. I related to her abuse. I related to her triumph. I related to her not being chosen or picked regarding career because of what she may have looked like or being restricted. There were so many things, so many nuggets, so many pieces of wisdom that I learned from observing her, and that you can create your own and make your own and forge your own way, especially if you are a brown girl, a big brown girl with something to say. Let no one stand in your way. Oprah is an Aquarius, and that means that her literal life's purpose is to help the world and to a degree heal the world, or to bring concepts and ideas that are new to us to the world, of which she fulfilled in great detail over and over again. Her humanitarianism, was often on display in so many ways, and we all looked up to Oprah. It didn't matter what color you were, what ethnicity you were. It didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter whether you were a first generation American or you've been here. It didn't matter. Oprah resonated with all of us and each of us, and we watched her show as she dived into and delved into topics that we needed to know, things that we didn't know, exposed us to the down low, exposed us on how to make our soul grow while our souls grew and our hair was glowing too. She did makeovers, she did interventions, she did why is my wife cheating, she did why is my husband cheating. She introduced us to Nate Berkus if you love some good home design and decor. Oprah did so much for us, and it felt like when she retired that there was so much more in store. She started her own channel, she did her own thing, and we were just proud of her, and we all rooted for her to a certain degree to win. But along the way, there were all of these stories that would creep out, but because it wasn't the age of social media when Oprah came about, it wasn't that time. It really happened like towards the end of her show. Oprah got away with a lot of things that we're just now really getting to know. Now, the great irony of this is, in the age of Aquarius, obviously, you're not here just because you want to hear about Oprah. I'm a metaphysical channel, so I'm always going to infuse what I'm talking about with metaphysical topics and ideologies. So I'm going to tell you this. When you're dealing in the age of Aquarius, you're dealing with receipts. Let's just get it really simple. Aquarius energy holds accountable. And if you haven't noticed with celebrities lately, from Sean P. Diddy Combs, allegedly, right on down the line, there has been non-stop accountability about the things that they have done in their past. It's all being dredged up because that's Aquarian energy working. It balances out the scales, and it says if you ever did any dirt, it will not prevail. It will not be buried any longer. You no longer get to control the narrative. One of the things that brought Oprah really to the forefront here in the last year, a couple of things. There were the horrible fires that happened in Hawaii, and she and The Rock asked for money. Now, The Rock has since come out and apologized because he understood the optics. I believe The Rock also has his eyes on politics and running, potentially. I'm believing on a Republican ticket sometime in the future for president, perhaps. We might have a Rock president. And so what I will tell you is that The Rock did what we all wanted, which was for him to behave humanely and say, it was weird for me to come to you and ask you for money, but Oprah doubles down. One thing that we don't see Oprah do, in as much as she taught us all to do this, which was to hold ourselves accountable and to be honest and to communicate and to apologize if we're wrong. When Oprah has been called out for being wrong, we don't often see her apologize. Years ago, she was one of the many huge supporters of one Mr. Harvey Weinstein, who was held accountable in his own right and is currently still serving time for his egregious essays and abuses to many of the Hollywood stars and starlets. Okay? So, and Oprah was like his right-hand person, literally championing him, hand on his back in many pictures, and loving his energy, not realizing maybe, allegedly, actually knowing who he might have been the whole time. We'll never know, allegedly. But what I will say is that she could have apologized about that. There's so many things that she could have really taken accountability for. And if you would have told my 8-year-old self sitting there watching Oprah's On, that was one of the first original theme songs with my grandmother so many years ago in 89, I think. 8 or 9-year-old self, and yeah, 89, I would have been 9 years old. And I'm watching Oprah's On, I'm every woman. That was in the early 90s when she co-opted that. It's in me, a little bit of Whitney, and then when she thought she was Tina Turner. If you would have told my prepubescent to adult self, teen adult self, that I would be here saying, Oprah, you got some splaining to do, I would have told you you were a damn liar. You couldn't have told me nothing. In fact, even in my late 20s, early 30s maybe, I went to one of her Life You Want tour. It was called, I can't even think of it now. I went in Miami. It was Live Your Best Life, Your Best Life tour. And so some of the speakers there were Deepak Chopra and Elizabeth Gilbert, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love, and Ian Van Zandt was there, all of that, right? So it was really fantastic, and I enjoyed it. And you got to be in the room with Oprah, and Oprah knows she's Oprah, and it was magic. She makes magic. But what I found, I think what we have found in the zeitgeist, and this is why this is happening, is that everyone's like looking at her with the bombastic side eye. Not just because of the Hawaii thing where she was like, please give us all your money. We're like, Oprah, you're a billionaire. It's not to say that you should fund the rebuilding of Hawaii, but it is to say that you could greatly contribute and it would help, okay? It's not in your frame of reference to do that totally. Though if she wanted to, she couldn't write it off. I'm just saying. But Oprah has given, and we've seen her give so generously throughout the years. That's why the Oprah that we see today feels incongruent with the Oprah that we knew. But I submit to you that this may have always been Oprah. Recently, I saw a clip of Toni Braxton talking about her experience being on the Oprah show, where Oprah was holding her accountable for her financial problems and financial mishandlings. And while that was true, the issue was the way that Toni made her feel, or excuse me, Oprah made Toni feel. And it reminds me of the quote by Oprah's very own treasured mentor, Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said. People forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that's where I look for Oprah, for this compassion, because I'm like, you literally had Maya Angelou make you her fried chicken. You literally sat at her table and dined at her lap and sat at her knee essentially and got to glean all of this wisdom from her. But you don't realize how you can make people feel. And what I have noticed with Oprah, which I thought again, if you would have told my little brown girl self, I would be saying this, is a bit of mean girl energy. Not just from that Toni interview, but also an interaction with Whoopi. It's very interesting that Oprah has a tendency to have these interactions and face off with people, and usually their voices are suppressed, no matter how famous they are. Whoopi is incredibly famous. Whoopi is insanely talented. Whoopi is an EGOT, and Whoopi and Oprah did The Color Purple together all those years ago in the 80s. However, they've always had this weird feud. Why do you think that is? Now, it's not to say that Whoopi's maybe a pocket full of sunshine all the time, but it is to say that Whoopi is pretty likable and pretty well loved and renowned in the industry. Whoopi is a Scorpio woman, so what she won't do is ever forget a grudge. That's one thing she's not going to do. But I will tell you, I found that very peculiar. And then Oprah will do this thing where she has the people on that she has these alleged feuds with and be like playing in their face, like, I don't know, like, what, well, I don't know why we were fighting. I don't understand whatever happened. Oprah fell out with Iyanla Van Sant. They reconciled. She brought her back in. She made good. They went on to do a lot of great work together on OWN, on Iyanla's show Fix My Life. Oprah fell out with Monique. Famously, infamously. We will never hear the end of that for the end of days. And while I definitely think Monique has a lot of work to do in her own personal life, what she said I thought was really interesting. I'll just tell you guys that are metaphysical. My Mars is in Libra, so I pay a lot of attention to what is fair. Like, the way that I get angry has to do with, like, what is justice or unjust. What is just or unjust. So I pay a lot of attention to that. And there are some things that I can't reconcile. And it sounds like, and I believe Monique is telling the truth, that Oprah took things from her that she didn't have to, or wanted roles that, and got them because she could. She was Oprah, she could. A little bit of mean girl energy, but also would kind of be duplicitous and dubious and devious, all of these D words. And Monique couldn't reconcile it, even going as far as having her brother, who had SA'd her, Monique's brother, knowing that Oprah and Monique share a similar history of SA, where they had bonded and chatted about that, and then Oprah went on to have it for ratings, have her brother and her mother on, which Monique has never forgiven, and then went on to interact with Oprah throughout the years, and it was just drama after drama. And we could leave it there if it's Monique, because we know that Monique can be, in fact, dramatic. But there was something that rang true for me when I was listening to there was something that rang true for me when I was listening to the situation with the two of them, and I thought, this sounds familiar to other things I've heard. There was an actress that played in The Color Purple who was the love interest of Harpo in the movie The Color Purple the first time. I don't know her name, but she was she's like light skinned, you know, kind of like curly hair, and she had said in an interview some years ago that Oprah was a mean girl, and that Oprah, she gave her description of, like, you know, she made it about it was like weight, you know, ism. It was like, well, Oprah was a big girl, and so she wasn't popular or this or that, so now that she has power, she's especially mean. Well, the thing about that is that's not true. That could have been her perception. When I say that's not true, we have empirical evidence that Oprah won pageants. Oprah was always beautiful. Oprah was always speaking and winning oratory awards right back down to like grade school up into high school, and being a debutante and all of that. So while Oprah had her troubles and had her history of SA and such, Oprah was seen as an attractive woman and an intelligent woman and a powerful and achieving woman far before she ever got on anybody's TV. Excuse me, guys. So I heard what that lady was saying, but I think she was giving her best assessment to why she was diagnosing, and it's not to say that she was right, why Oprah was seen as mean. And I just thought, okay, well, there's got to be, you know, that was her encounter. Maybe they had some friction on the set. Who knows? But then over and over and over, we hear stories of women interacting with Oprah. Women at the top of their game, like Whoopi. Women like her that had a few roles and then kind of like faded into obscurity. And in between, where Oprah was mean. Most recently, the situation between her and Taraji. And this was not about Oprah being mean to Taraji, I believe, just to be mean to Taraji. No. Taraji had made some real allegations about things not being right, about pay disparity, and all the rest of it. She did it while she was on the press run for The Color Purple, which came out here recently over the holidays, which was produced by Oprah, a very full circle moment. This movie she once started, she is now co-producing, and she was one of the executive producers. And And she did say, and much to the ladies, credit, they said they wrote statements. I believe Taraji was demanded and requested to fix that very quickly because Oprah was pissed. She was so pissed she started to talk about it in the press and say, you guys are making this about me and Taraji. We don't often hear Oprah break the fourth wall where she's talking to us like we know what's going on behind the scenes. She is the consummate professional for a reason. But what I will say is that she did such a it was such a weird thing that we all watched, especially when they were on top of that, I think the Empire State Building, and the body language was off, and we all could see it. We all know what it is to have like friction with somebody, then that somebody comes up, then we're not like really talking to that somebody, and it's weird, and it's weird, and it just gets like really awkward. And so one of the things that I feel like happened is that they were in this space where they could not come to an agreement because Oprah didn't like that she was being defamed. She didn't like that she was being seen as someone who was not championing the women or championing for the rights of the actresses or whatever. And she, in fact, probably did pull some strings once it was done. Now, what I will say about this, just a quick aside beyond why are we kind of moving away from Oprah? Why are people so hateful of Oprah? Why have the tides turned? My thought was this: Oprah knows what it is to be an actress on sets. She knows what it is to have things fall apart like they just did. She knows what it is to not be treated well or paid her wage. One of her famous stories was about being One of her famous stories was about being in a job with a man who was being paid, I think, $55,000 to her $20-something thousand, and she questioned why that was happening. She was a newscaster, I believe, in Chicago. And so Oprah has had her fair share of understanding when things aren't fair, but Oprah's also made her way, to be fair. We cannot take that from her. But what I will say is that I thought, Oprah, we've seen you redo people's houses. We've seen you make full spas in someone's bathroom. We've seen you fly people around the world. I mean, there is no bounds to what her money can do. I thought, why wasn't she preemptive? Why didn't she think ahead of time to have everything be almost so incredible, even over the top, because that is Oprah's signature, that when they came in, the experience would have naturally been chatted about in all of those interviews, like, oh my gosh, this craft service was not just craft service, it was flown in from Paris. It's her movie. And it's a full circle movie, and it's an iconic signature movie. It's not like it was just another thing, another project that Oprah was doing. So that's why I thought it was so peculiar that she didn't essentially like trick it out. That she didn't, when I say trick it out, I mean like pimp their trailers and like pimp my ride. Like, why didn't she make it the most incredible, luxurious, all-encompassing experience for them as actresses, so that each one of them would have had a story to tell, especially since the cast was filled with primarily black actresses? Why was she not on top of that to make it the most delicious experience? Because she can. She is Oprah. We've watched her redo Ian Van Zandt's house and so much more. There's so many things that we've watched Oprah do. And yes, she may have gotten sponsorships and donations, and she maybe didn't do it all out of her own pocket, but if ever there was a time to do something out of your own pocket and on her dime, this was it. Because it would have changed. It could have literally evolved and changed the game, where people were like, this is the Oprah standard. We may not be always able to meet it, but she's now set a new bar. When she's executive producing, these women and men are treated like the real stars that they are, and they don't have to come in and negotiate like Taraji did for the right pay or whatever, or say, I need a car to come for me. I know Oprah can't think of everything. She is not Megamind. It's not her responsibility to know every single detail, but just this once, and this was my own place where I took with it. I was like, I really wish that Oprah, who taught us all about paying attention to the details, would have paid attention to these details and would have done this preemptively, because it was going to matter. People were going to look at it, and it is literally part of her legacy. And now her legacy with this is tarnished. Now, it's tarnished for other reasons, but I really believe she dropped the ball, which is fascinating to me because Oprah's so good at this, or so I thought, or was it her production team? time that was so good at the details. But Oprah said that she lived her life that way, detailed. She showed us her inner sanctum, her offices, her many houses, and everything is so specific and so absolutely curated that she even made a brand about it, Oprah's favorite things. And I just wonder why those heavy personal touches were not applied to any degree, not a modicum of them were applied to the way that these actresses were treated, because this is your thing, Oprah. Literally, quite literally, The Color Purple, one full circle, 30, 40 years later, it's your thing. So that was a weird thing for me. Easier said than done. Now, here's what I will say too. I'm not just talking out of my bum. I will tell you, I have a lot of Virgo placements in my chart, which means that I pay attention to details. I pay a lot of attention to the details. And so I know that you can love someone through details and through little like peculiarities and paying attention and making sure that everything is just so. And even if she couldn't make everything curated to each actress, she could have put on the show of making sure that it was beautiful across the board for every actor and actress on that set, that they had the most lovely trailers, and that we found out the details, because that's what Oprah does. That's literally what she does, is she figures out what you love and she makes it expand. She has a Jupiterian energy, and Jupiter, the largest planet in our galaxy, is a planet of expansion in the astrological way. And so Oprah has a Jupiterian energy of expansion, and so everything she touches turns to gold, or everything that she touches grows. Hence those people that I talked about, Dr. Oz, Dr. Phil, Rachel Ray, these people that she would bring on to us blew up in their own way, because when Oprah was proximal, empath, you guys have a lot of Jupiterian energy too, it expanded. So it's interesting that she didn't take this moment to make this the most curated experience, knowing that that's not the norm and it's not what she had. And I think that, you know, sometimes we can get lost in toxic parenting, where it's like, well, I didn't get that, so why should you? I hope that wasn't her stance. We'll never know. What we do know is that Taraji spoke up, and then everyone started to look at Oprah, because we see Oprah as the fixer. She was our fairy godmother when we were up and coming, but lately we've been like, what? I even think back to the Michael Jackson interview, where she was really pivoting, and a lot of people took umbrage with her years later, and even at that time, because they didn't like the way that she was painting him, and it was very interesting. It was very interesting, but it all got like kind of swept under the rug because social media and Twitter or X or whatever didn't exist, right? So we weren't all in the town square on Beyonce's internet talking about what we felt about things collectively. And so I thought that was really interesting, that things fall apart is what I'm channeling from Post Malone. Anyway, so I thought that was very interesting. So Oprah has shifted in the public perception. We didn't like how that was handled. We didn't like seeing Taraji's tears. We believed her. And it's the thing is, Monique has been screaming this for years, but because Monique is abrasive, and there's a whole nother talking point about the many reasons why many people didn't ingest what Monique was saying, it was not seen as something to be taken seriously. But then here's the thing about the camel's back and the straw. Eventually one thing will break the whole structure and everything will fall apart quite actually. And that's what happened with this thing with Taraji. All of the sins of the mother, Oprah, were now heaped upon her, and we were looking at her like, you just did this other thing, and then you did this other thing, and then all of these clips resurfaced where Ludacris was talking about how he felt attacked by Oprah, where 50 Cent, where all of these foundational Black Americans at this point, these were all multi-millionaire Americans. Maybe they were not anybody at the time when they were on her show, or they were up and coming, because obviously they had to be on her show, but they were not who they were now. 50 Cent was not 50 Cent of Power and Vitamin Water, not yet. He was just a rapper, and she was taking him to task very much on some respectability politics. And this man's a mogul who is intelligent, who doesn't drink, who doesn't do drugs, and who doesn't fraternize, and who is as shrewd as a shark, and is a businessman in every way, and doesn't really deal with toxicity. He was one of the first people to be telling us about P. Diddy and the shenanigans of P. Diddy trying to take him shopping. So he is very, very, very eagle-eyed, and he was dismissed by Oprah, as were many many. I could go on and on and on. We'd be here all day, but I have more work to do and more clients and more videos to make. But I will tell you, that is exactly what has been happening, is that everyone's been looking at her and saying, God, when I had a chance to sit with you and I loved you, I was obsessed with you, I adored you, as Toni Braxton said, I idolized her, as we all did. It's a collective experience, and I believe that's why the collective disappointment is so vast, because the same way that we idolized her is the same way that she has fallen so fast. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. You know what they say, never meet your idols. And to be in the thrall of Oprah, she certainly carries a rarefied air. She even taught us about rarefied air and what it's like to be all the way up there. But that's one of the things to remember, is that when you are given power and as you start to grow and have success, remember that that's not just a flex, that you should treat people kindly, because as her mentor said, people will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And when Taraji was on top of the Empire State Building, looking up to the sky and praying, and shutter blinking away tears, how was she feeling? How had Oprah made her feel? Maybe Taraji made Oprah feel away by saying that. Maybe it embarrassed her. Obviously, there's another side of it, and Oprah's a human too, with her own emotions. But I've just laid out to you, not even succinctly, not like Paige Chrissy. It's one of my favorite YouTubers who does a really good job laying out documentary style evidence. But I've laid out for you just a few things, and I'm sure you've had a few of your own that you could see, and that's why in the zeitgeist, Oprah's energy has shifted from popularity to, is she shifty? Is she trustworthy? Is she a mean girl? You know, when they say if you live long enough, you will live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I don't think she's in her villain era, because that would mean that she would be owning it and being like, yes, I'm Cruella de Vil. That's not what it is. But now she has been villainized by us and by people that actually encountered her personally, because what we see is not the compassion that she branded herself with, and not the humanitarianism that is her sign's namesake, and not the graciousness and the thoughtfulness and the attention to detail that literally had us in a chokehold for almost 20 years. She is something altogether different, which I think is fallible and human, and that's fair. There is duality that exists within us all. Both things can be true. Ellen could be seen as funny, but then they said she was running Gitmo in the back, allegedly, too. Both things were true to somebody. To some staff members, they were not seeing her as funny. They were not seeing her as approachable. There's something to be said about these public personas, and then also their behind the scenes. Now, none of us have the same public persona as we do the behind the scenes energy. And I think that that's something to really note, you know? We are, like, I don't look like this all the time, okay? Everybody's regular, degular. Everybody has their down days. Everybody can be a bitch. Everybody can be an asshole. Everybody, are you the asshole? Yeah, some days it is you. But I think the reason that we have such a hard time conceptualizing and or compartmentalizing the thing with Oprah is because it was all encompassing. It felt like she truly was outside what she was inside, and those little voices that spoke were often suppressed, and now they're not suppressed. And I believe that's why they made Taraji write that statement very quickly. It was like, Oprah's been amazing, I love Oprah so much, all hell Oprah. And I was like, no, Oprah's pissed, because I saw it in her energy. In an interview, if you go back, there's an interview she does with a guy on a red carpet, and she was like, this narrative with Taraji, oh no, anytime someone uses the word narrative, they're pissed, right? So Oprah was pissed, and Oprah was pissed because she felt like she was being besmirched in the public. She felt like she was being besmirched and that her name was being sullied. But I believe what's happened is that the Aquarius energy that is quite literally her own zodiac sign has caught up with her. And it said, Mother Oprah, you are not so divine. And for the times you have not been divine, we are going to take you to task time after time, because it's something you chose to do. The very energy that you dished out, will be served back to you. And this time, Oprah cannot control the narrative like she could for all those years on her show, with her executive producers being incredibly Machiavellian with the details. She can't spin the story. She can't shun the Moniques of the world. She cannot keep everyone quiet when everyone's calling out for justice and accountability. And if she doesn't want to give it, she doesn't have to. If she's in her 70s, she looks amazing. She's living her best life, as she always has. But the universe is beckoning to her to get it right, as it always will. If Oprah lives long enough, she will see her third Saturn return, and she will have to take accountability for whatever bitter pills she dished out as she was on that ladder climbing for clout. She will have to answer for that, as we all do. And even if she doesn't do it in the public square and forum, like I think Aquarius is calling her to, because it would actually shift and soften. But who cares? At this point, what does Oprah have to lose? She doesn't give a damn about our opinions. And that's why I'm not saying that I think she's going to do it to appease us. But I believe on a metaphysical soul level, they are saying, can you take a look, my good sis, at your behavior, because you had some misses. We all have misses. But what Oprah prided herself on with us, and this is why it's incongruent, was taking accountability when it was something you were not doing. Okay, and that's why this is difficult, and that's why the tide has shifted with Oprah, because we realize that this person that we lauded as queen, which we all do, people will put you on a pedestal to tear you down, and you cannot live your life by that. But we do want her to be as principled as she held us accountable to be, and as she taught us to be. We want to see that same integrity reside in her, and because she is an Aquarius in the age of Aquarius, they are holding her ass to task to say, my dear, she hates being called an auntie, so we won't call her auntie, dear Oprah, dear fairy godmother Oprah, dear Oprah the woman, Oprah the human, Oprah the person who is so incredibly successful that can never be taken away from her, an icon, a literal monolith, like this woman, the things that she accomplished, a billionaire, God bless it, who had a grandmother who was a maid. We love to see it. In Black History Month, we love to see it. But in Black History Month, I'm going to stand in my own Black excellence and talk about exactly what the truth is, as we are all seeing it, which is that there were some misses, sis. There were some misses, ma'am. There were some places where you could have been kinder and exhibited and given the level of grace that you wanted us to give you, the level of grace you called us to rise to. Come on, Maya Angelou, and still, like air, we rise. You can write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. And what is so ironic is that, Oprah, there were some lies that you wrote down in history for others that they are saying are bitter and twisted. And the Aquarian energy is calling to you and saying, my sweet daughter, will you fix it? Only time will tell. But that's my offering to you. Oprah did it, and she did it better than well. She is the best, simply one of the best. But that doesn't mean that the universe will not have a couple of things to get off its chest about how we handled ourselves morally. Can we argue her financial iconic story? Never. Never, 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 never. But I think the universe has on bridge, and a few to 3 to 5 to a lot of people feel a way about the ways that she handled them privately or publicly. And that will be for her to rectify, should she ever. But if she doesn't, then she will have to ride this tide, and it is turning. All right, guys, so good sharing energy with you. Come back and join me next time, and we'll continue to evolve together.